Good morning, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. That's right, I'm your toast, Weston Hasty. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have to come up with a list. I'm going to have to come up with a spreadsheeted list of what it is I can be for you in the morning. Host, toast, boat. I don't even remember what else I've said so far, but that's why I need a list. That's why I need a list so that I know what it is I have already said and what needs to be said. Darn it. It's actually something very similar to what I'm doing on Twitter, is that when I think about it, I don't quite pull it off every morning because sometimes I'm too busy or tired to think about Twitter in the morning. But I do this thing where I try to say good morning, comma, and then something to like call everyone that might read it, right? So like in October we were doing a theme of like all the different monsters and Halloween-y October stuff. So good morning vampires, good morning werewolves, good morning ghosts, good etc. And it was getting really tough there toward the end to come up with stuff that I hadn't used before, trying to come up with things that made sense that were definitely October themed, right? Like good morning swamp people or something like that, right? I was trying to think of horror or spooky stuff. And here in November, I'm trying to come up with like bird related things. It could be because the entire punchline is just going to be on Thanksgiving. I want to do good morning turkeys. That's the entire premise. The entire premise is that I wanted to be able to get to Thanksgiving to say good morning turkeys. So I'm trying to come up with bird-related stuff. Maybe today can be like good morning pigeons or something like that. I don't know. I think the last one I did was good morning birds of a feather. No, the last one I did was good morning murder of crows. I don't know. There are no rules other than I'm just trying to come up with a theme basically every month to roll with. So I'm trying to do something very similar to that here on this podcast, where I'm coming up with what can I be? Good morning, I'm your blah. It doesn't even have to rhyme with host. It doesn't really matter. So imagine, just wait. Just imagine this going buck wild eventually. Eventually we're gonna go so nuts on what we're gonna be saying. It's great. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. This is the podcast that's sort of like my morning journal, I guess, is kind of the idea. It's a personal podcast with no specific like overarching theme to connect every episode together necessarily, other than the fact that I will often talk about I don't even know if it's appropriate to say pop culture stuff, really. Because it's not necessarily that I'm doing any of the popular stuff, but like video games or Netflix shows or what have you, that kind of thing. Like media, like entertainment media, consumer media stuff, but as well as news or YouTube shenanigans or things in my life that interest me or are otherwise affecting me that I think might interest you. It's that kind of thing. So I guess really it's like a personal journal podcast meant to be shared, right? That's kind of the idea. Our little half-hour show in the morning, every morning, that you can listen to on Anchor, as well as a number of other platforms such as Breaker or Pocket Casts, or I'm still working on the Google Podcasts. It's supposed to be up, and then it's not. So I'm gonna have to contact some support team or something, because something's not jiving over there. But I have a few Spotify. I have a few platforms that I'm on, and you can check all of those out at anchor.fm/hasty podcast. If you prefer other streaming services besides Anchor, there are some links to my other things from my Anchor page, so you can check that out anyway and listen on your preferred platform from those that are available. Yes, I wanted to say that. Hopefully we get to the point where I can get Google Podcasts and iTunes up and running properly. I might be on iTunes by now. By the time you're listening to this, I might be there. You'll have to just Google search a Hasty Podcast, or not Google search, but iTunes search Google is so powerful that it has become synonymous with even iTunes for me. You have to check that out. It might be up there by the time you're listening to this, but I don't have an Apple device, so like I don't check very regularly. But I do have some news here. I've got a couple topics. I'm going to talk about Netflix a little bit. The next Netflix shows I've been watching, which if you've been watching a few of these podcasts, you know what I'm going to talk about. And then I will wrap up the podcast talking about Fiverr, if you're familiar with that, because I don't know, need to complain a little bit. And then, so short podcast. Every single one is. I feel like these are pretty good sized, like bite-sized little podcasts to just kind of listen to in the morning. It won't take up too much of your time. And you can tune in just whenever you feel like it. First things first, though, I've been watching some Netflix. I got around to watching some Netflix last night. I don't get around to it as often as I would like. I would like to get myself to watch an episode of something like every day instead of not watching anything for days on end and then having to binge watch a bunch of stuff and then having no idea what's going on. I've been watching The Legend of Korra, which I mentioned, as well as watching BNA, which I did learn what BNA stands for. I thought BNA, it's this anime on Netflix, if you're not familiar, I thought it was a play on DNA, which it still might, but I watched episode 2, and in the intro, the little intro, what do they call the opening to an anime, like an OP or something like that? I don't know, I'm not really versed in the lingo, but the introduction song or whatever, the screen, the title screen pops up BNA, and it actually says there on the screen that it apparently stands for brand new animal, apparently, which I kind of get. I guess we'll talk about BNA first. I discovered what I learned before. I thought it was a play on DNA, but just instead of whatever the it's DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's something like that. But I thought maybe they just slapped a B in there to be like, because this world has beast men in it. Beasts. BNA, which I still kind of hold might be a part of the inspiration for the title. But I saw that the title was Brand New Animal. And that makes perfect sense because the protagonist, the raccoon girl, which I thought was actually pretty funny. They bring this up in episode 2 that she's not a raccoon, she's a tanuki, but she herself is like, I don't want to be a tanuki, I'm a raccoon. And I'm like, how do you know not know what animal you turn into? And it made me think about how in this universe, in the BNA universe, you can just coexist alongside animals that aren't necessarily specific to your region. Like a tanuki, for example, is just not a thing in America. There is no tanuki in America. That's a very Japanese animal, which again, it's like an anime, so I get it, right? It's made in Japanese. The whole raccoon thing is probably just a localization anyway, right? But we have raccoons here. We definitely have raccoons here. So obviously, when it's localized to an English-speaking audience, it's like, of course, the first thing I thought when I saw the protagonist was, oh, raccoon girl. And then I just thought it was funny that in episode 2, they're like, I'm not, or you're not a raccoon, you're a tanuki, according to the Silver Wolf character. You're going to realize that I don't remember the names to any of the characters in the show because they're in Japanese or whatever. And my brain doesn't hold on to that. When I'm watching the show, I feel like when people say each other's names, I know what they're talking about. But then when I'm not actively watching the show, if I have to describe it to someone else as I am doing now, I can't do it. I have no idea the protagonist's name, the Silver Wolf character, who's sort of going to be the side protagonist, kind of helping Tanuki Girl with her sort of quest. I will say spoilers for the second episode of BNA if you haven't watched it. you can do that. You can put a pause on this podcast and return to it when you have, or you can skip ahead somewhat. Because while it is only episode 2, I feel like the direction I thought the show was going in from watching episode 1, there are some twists immediately in episode 2. So I'm going to say spoiler warning on that. If you have no interest in watching the show and you'd rather just listen to me talk about it, or you just don't mind spoilers, then, well, here we go. But we begin episode 2 basically right away. It's such a sharp left turn where all of a sudden the whole reason Tanuki Girl comes to this beast city, which is called Anima City, if I remember correctly. I didn't remember what it was last time I talked about this. It's Anima City, but it's a city of beastmen. And beastmen are these animal human hybrids that were like, I'm a little unclear. They're animals first, either because literally they were an animal first that learned how to become humanoid, or literally they just are more animal than human, and that's sort of their identity, right? That they're these animal people, right? Because they are not humans. They actively distance themselves from the idea that they are humans, right? So they're beastmen. In the morning, come morning, because the entire episode 1 that you spend in Anima City is at night. In the morning, in episode 2, all the beastmen turn into humans. Or not humans, but people. Human-looking people. And I say not humans because, again, they're still beastmen. They don't turn into humans. They're still beastmen, so they don't identify as human. But they turn into human-looking people. And I was just, like, immediately thrown off because, one, I don't know much about the show going into it, so I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting much like Tanuki Girl, who she herself in this universe was surprised. So she exists in this universe. She comes to Anima City because she hears it's a city of beastmen. And I should say, too, that's a spoiler from episode 1, that Tanuki Girl is human. And she's caught some disease, or she's been experimented on, or something's happened to her, such that she has transformed into a beastman and can't revert back to her human self. Nor can she take on a human form. She is stuck in her animal form. Beastmen are not stuck in an animal form. I thought the beastmen were animal humanoids, right? But they can transform. They just have transformative powers to look like people, like human people, by day. And the show doesn't explain why they do that by day. Tanuki Girl tries to ask about it, and she gets shot down like, oh, what a human thing to ask. And it's like, well, yeah, but no, really, why? Why do you transform into humans if there's so much distrust of humans in the first place that, like, you don't like them? And then 2, there aren't any humans living in the city, or at least that's the idea. We might find out that that's not strictly true moving forward, but the entire premise is that this is a city of beastmen. Why? My assumption is that these beastmen learn to transform into human-looking individuals as a survival mechanism to coexist alongside humans before the founding of Anima City. Because in the story, it sounds like Anima City was sort of this great achievement in getting beastmen to live and coexist with humans on the planet, but it itself is otherwise devoid of humans and is completely separate from humans. Like a segregation type situation here, where the beastmen have sort of segregated themselves into this city of their own. Imagine being like, imagine being like some kind of minority, right? Wherever you are in the world, imagine being some kind of ethnic minority. And to coexist with whatever the ethnic majority is, you form your own city, and then by day, paint yourself as the majority. Why? Why would you do that? It makes no sense. And I hate to use the race example, but it makes no sense to me that this minority group, the beastmen, that are clearly taken... what's the word I'm looking for? Taken advantage of and abused by the human populations on the planet. Clearly the beastmen are this sort of minority population. they segregate themselves from the world into this one city, and then by day pretend to be the species or race or whatever, the majority group that abuses them. It doesn't make sense to me. And when Tanuki Girl tries to bring that up, she's waved away, and Silver Wolf is just like, oh, that's a very human way of thinking or whatever, you're so silly, but then doesn't explain it. It doesn't, anyway. It drives me nuts. This is the very beginning of this episode. God, it's already been so long, and I have not delved into this second episode. But basically, Tanuki Girl finds out that Anima City isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and that it's actually a bit of a free-for-all. The strongest survive. The Beastmen don't work together. There's a lot of infighting, and it sort of shocks her that it's really no better than any of the human places she used to be at, and that she's not happy there, and that she basically wants to find a way to turn back into her old human self, get out of the city, and leave forever. She's basically angry at the humans, and she's angry at the Beastmen because they're all the same, and they refuse to sort of realize that, I guess. That humans fight each other for no reason, that the Beastmen fight each other for no reason, that they hate each other for no reason because ultimately they're the same. That's sort of the culmination of the episode. She has this outbreak at the very end in front of the Silver Wolf, who's going to continue to be a very dominant side protagonist, the Silver Wolf character who is on this sort of crusade for the betterment of Beastmen and has this extreme dislike or hatred for humankind. So there's sort of a foil there where Tanuki Girl, whose name I cannot remember, is really pro getting people to be compassionate for one another and care about one another and get along with one another. And whereas the Silver Wolf has kind of given up on that concept entirely, knows, or at least believes that there is no way humans and beastmen can ever get along together, and has resigned himself to the fact that beastmen will have this infighting and struggle for the strongest will survive. So this very resigned, stoic character foiled with our main protagonist, who's very optimistic, upbeat. She tries to see the good in everyone that she meets, even if that turns out to be her downfall. She ends up getting kidnapped in episode 2 because she overly trusted some gangsters. She gets introduced to this rabbit mafia, which is interesting because they're not all rabbits. It's really just the one sort of head leader, and even this gang of rabbits. I want to say gang, but they kind of present this gang kind of mafia style, but they're not very powerful. They're actually taking orders from some rival gang because this rabbit gang is not powerful enough. But they end up tricking her into working with them to basically help them in beastmen trafficking. They're trafficking children, but the rabbit gangsters pretend it's basically an orphanage for kids that have been left behind, but it's a lie, and they want her to teach these kids to read and write because they'll be more valuable to the buyers of these kids. It's kind of dark. This is all revealed later. It's because Tanuki Girl agrees to help teach the kids to read and write because she thinks she's helping the community, and if she does so, the mob boss or whatever will return to her stolen possessions. In episode 1, Tanuki Girl loses her wallet and purse and stuff, and they wound up in the possession of Mafia Rabbit Queen. And so the Mafia Rabbit's just all right, well, I'll return this stuff for you, but you have to do it for the children. So Tanuki Girl agrees to do so, and it turns out to actually be a trafficking ring. So she gets kidnapped, and in the end she has to rescue herself from this situation, and turns out that Tanuki Girl has these body morphing powers beyond just having turned into a raccoon. She can inflate her tail, she can stretch her arms One Piece style, so there's more going on than there is to meet the eye in BNA, learning more about what it is Tanuki Girl can do, how she became what she is, and how she thinks she's going to cure it. I'm very curious to see where this goes, and I am quickly using up my time. I will wrap up my Netflix section with just mentioning that I have been watching The Legend of Korra, and I have finished season 2, which means I have caught up officially to where I last left off when the show was new. So if you're not familiar with The Legend of Korra, you have 2 seasons to catch up with. I might start talking about season 3 as well in later episodes. I'll talk more about Legend of Korra on another episode, I think. Because right now, I want to complain about Fiverr. So I'm going to sip my coffee. It's still very hot. All right, for those of you that don't know what Fiverr is, it's a freelancing platform where freelancers can provide their services on this platform that sort of hosts the service, collects money, and deals with all of that, all the back end of running the platform for the freelancers. So it's kind of like a window shop for service providers of some kind. I think Etsy. You know how Etsy is just a bunch of independent creators putting their stuff on a store, a collective store where multiple people can do the same thing. So kind of imagine an Etsy, but it's for freelancers, right? Where a bunch of freelancers that provide a service can offer their services on Fiverr, and Fiverr just kind of deals with all the back end of running the website, provides you your sort of page to offer your services, deals with the money situation. That's what Fiverr is. It's spelled Fiverr with 2 R's, Fiverr. It's a platform that I use. I've made purchases on it for folks that provide a service for things that I do on YouTube. Specifically, I've had my merchandise designs commissioned through Fiverr. There are some good designers out there that create intended for t-shirts and merchandise and that sort of thing, intended for that, designs and stuff, graphic designs, that kind of thing. So I've made purchases on there, but I'm also a seller on there. I'm a freelancer on there myself. I offer my my service is, and it's kind of a debatably helpful service, I understand. So if you don't know why someone would pay me to do this, I completely understand. But my service basically is that I will make a let's play of your video game. So if you're a game developer, right, and you want a let's play made of your game by a relatively upbeat and entertaining and experienced let's player, I am the #1 let's player on Fiverr. There's a couple. There aren't very many of us. There's a couple on Fiverr right now, but I've seen others come and go on Fiverr. And let's put it this way: I'm the #1 let's player on Fiverr. No joke. With over 100 5-star reviews, I am literally the #1 and will be for a while. So, so take that as you will. I do have some buyers, but the entire premise is that I'll do a let's play, and if you're a game developer, basically, I agree to play your game for so long based on what we've agreed on, and my rate is based on how long I spend in your game, because that correlates to how long I also spend editing the game, and then I put it up on my YouTube channel, and it functions kind of twofold, right? That means it's one part advertising my audience to this game, but it's also another part where if you wanted a let's play made for your game to if you're the developer, right, to advertise people, to say, hey, check out my game, here's someone let's playing it in case you're interested. So it's kind of like providing a trailer, but like typically a 20 to 30 minute plus trailer, depending on the time that we've agreed on. Sometimes they're longer videos if that's what the client wants, but that's kind of the idea, that I create the video and then it exists on my YouTube channel for my audience, and then also for the developers to share amongst other people, so that we both benefit. We both benefit from it. One, I maybe get increased viewership on the video, and then the developer also has an actual example of someone playing and enjoying and being entertaining playing this game. So that's kind of the idea behind that. It's not an expensive service I run because, again, the entire idea is that I try to benefit from it as well, hoping that the developers or publishers or whoever I'm working with also promotes that video, which kind of inherently promotes my own YouTube channel. So I'm not a particularly expensive service. Some people think I am, and I'm not, because I think those people still think along the same 2010 lines of, oh, you just play games, that doesn't take any work. But it's the entire personality and entertainment, editing, and understanding the platform, and there's a lot more that kind of goes into the conversation aspect of actually being interesting while playing the game and highlighting points of a game when they come up, things that are good, things that are silly. That kind of thing takes some time to be good at doing vocally to actually relay those messages in on video. So that's my service that I offer. And oh my goodness, if you've spent any time on Twitter, maybe you've heard people complain, like artists complain about commissions going wrong. How maybe you're an artist who opens up commissions and then people want not safe for work content, but you don't do that. So you have to say, I don't do not safe for work, and then people yell at you because you don't do the thing that you said you don't do, right? Or sometimes people try to ask you to do a thing and then they don't want to pay you for it. Because I just wanted a portrait of my face. That's not real work. Do things for free, you stupid artist. I feel that so hard when I see people artists complain about that on Twitter and stuff, because I get the same kind of messages on my Fiverr gig, where people want free services provided because, it's just playing a game and it's going on my YouTube anyway. So it's like, oh, can you do this for free? No, I cannot. Or like, can you play this game on iOS? No, I explicitly list that I cannot play iOS. I don't have an iOS device, or any other platform that I can't do. I can do most things, right? I can do PC and a lot of consoles. If I've never had someone buy a console gig, but I've got a number of consoles I can use. I can use Android. I still would get orders for iOS, and then I have to cancel them with the buyer because it's like, I can't do it. I don't have iOS. That happens a lot. But here lately, I've been working with this client. I'm not going to say who they are or what the name of the game is or anything like that. There's nothing on my YouTube channel to give away who this is. But I've been working with this client. And again, remember, the entire premise of my gig is that I create Let's Play videos for YouTube. And I've been working with this client. The first time I worked with them, after I made the video, they requested that I actually don't post the video to YouTube because there was clearly a lot of work that still needed to be done on their game. And I honored that. I honored that request in the back of my mind, assuming based on the language that I wasn't going to post it yet, or maybe I was going to hear back about when they wanted it posted, that kind of thing. I was a little unsure because this client's not a native English speaker, which is always a rough time with the communication barrier between languages. They did speak English, it's just clearly not their first language. So anyway, I honored that. I didn't mind too much. They paid well for what I asked for in the gig, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine. We won't do that. I won't post the video. But the thing is, they started ordering more. I've been working with this client for some time now, actually, like 2 months, something like that, where they occasionally order a gig to play this game that is not developed. It's not developed. It's not finished. And what I've discovered over the last 2 months of working with this client, working on these big projects with them in terms of editing, these multi-hour recording sessions, they've been paying me to be their play tester. And I've realized that I've been duped into doing this because that's not what I offer to do. I run a YouTube channel. I'm not a freelance play tester because they started asking me to run all these tests in the game and look for bugs here and there. And I'm like, why? There's been a miscommunication here. This isn't what I do. I thought we were clear on what I do. And they've slowly, over time, over the course of a couple of gigs here have tricked me. And this is partly my fault because I should have seen this coming like after the first order came through. I should have seen this coming, and I got duped into being a playtester. And I'm tired of people trying to get me to do things I don't do. And so here, the last time I've worked with them, I've sent my client some bad news that this is the last project I'm doing for them, because on Fiverr, this is part of the issue with Fiverr, is that someone can place an order before they actually converse with you. So they already placed the order, and if you cancel an order, that can have adverse effects on your Fiverr page in terms of how you're placed and ranked on the website, and in terms of how your ratings are displayed and that kind of thing. Canceled orders can be bad, and usually if you don't want a canceled order to have an effect on your page, you have to go through support, and it's just a whole extra hassle. So I got the order through, I read the instructions of what they wanted, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. So I did the order to the best that I could one last time, and I've delivered some bad news to them that I will not be continuing to do this because this isn't what I do. So I explained what they'd been having me do, and I explained what it is that what I actually offer, and that I will not be able to do what they want me to do anymore for them. And now I'm waiting to hear back. I'm waiting to hear back about the results to that. I'm hoping I get paid for this project because, I get paid based on my time, not just the product. I put time into creating this thing for them that they don't even need, that they want me to perform a whole skill set of things that I don't do anyway. So I'm not helpful to them in any way whatsoever, because I make YouTube Let's Plays, and I'm not publishing any Let's Plays. There's no one that you can't share it with anyone. They want me to be a playtester. So I'm not being helpful to them in any way, shape, or form, and I want them to stop ordering from me without ruining my Fiverr page, basically. And it's so frustrating. And I have so many stories like that I want to talk about. Like, I've got, without naming anyone, I could talk about Fiverr from time to time. I've got some other similar stories, but I'm just waiting to hear back because they have 3 days to accept or reject the order before it's accepted automatically. And I'm kind of finger crossing that it just accepts automatically, I get paid, and then hopefully they leave me alone, is kind of what I'm hoping. I'm afraid that they're going to get the order, look at the video I've sent them, the project, because it's very critical. I've been because the game's broken that they're asking me to play. The game's broken. So in the video, I'm very critical about it, which has not been kind of the case so far. And I'm afraid that they're going to think that I'm, I don't know, being mean, rude, bullying, or something stupid. And I'm afraid they're going to reject the order and demand a revision, which I'm going to reject. If they reject me, I'm going to reject doing a revision because I'm not going to change it. And then it's going to become a whole thing where the order's going to get canceled anyway. I'm not going to get paid. They're going to leave me a bad review, and it's going to affect my page. And it's like, oh, Jesus. So I'm a little stressed out about that. Let me know if you want to hear more about Fiverr stories somewhere. Hit me up on Twitter at Weston Hasty, because we are over time. We're past time now. It's turning out to be that these half-hour podcasts are not long enough for me to talk about all that I have to talk about. But maybe that's a good thing. That means I'll just save some more of these topics for tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about Legend of Korra tomorrow. And then maybe if I have any more BNA, or if I have any more games to talk about. Actually, I have D&D tonight, so maybe I'll be talking about D&D tomorrow. So hit me up on Twitter at Weston Hasty if you want to talk to me directly. Send an @ my way. I don't usually read DMs, so avoid those. If you want to listen to the podcast elsewhere from wherever you're listening to it now, check out my Anchor page at anchor.fm/Hasty Podcast. There are links to other places where you can listen from there. Otherwise, you can search for A Hasty Podcast on your favorite listening platforms, and hopefully I'll be there eventually if I'm not there now. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you all. If you really want to support the podcast, share this with your friends and spread the word. Maybe share it on social media or something. Let me know what you guys think of how the podcast is going and what you'd like to hear me talk about. In the meantime, thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, I'm out of here. Bye. Wash your hands.